Good morning everyone, welcome to our small footprint. My name is Nyssa, and if you're new here, we are a family of 8 who live off-grid in Australia. What is today? Today is Friday the 22nd of December, so we're still full in the, cooking and prepping and baking and things for Christmas, as well as getting everything sorted. Darryl's going to do a last run to the post office today to pick up all the last of the stuff that's arrived. There's a couple of things that haven't arrived. My Christmas present, because that's the way it works, is not due to arrive until after Christmas, but we're hoping that the jackery's there. The tracking doesn't show that it's been delivered, but when I put an inquiry in about it, the people came back to me and said it was delivered on Tuesday. So it doesn't say delivered, but they're saying it arrived on Tuesday, which is really frustrating because we went to the post office on Monday and then we've been hanging, waiting to see what happened. Darryl ended up going into Toowoomba yesterday because of the whole generator issue. So because we had the generator, it hasn't been working. We've owned it for about 6 months, and in the last 3 weeks we've had multiple issues, so we put a warranty claim in for it. It's just a 3 kVA one from 4-wheel drive Supercenter, one of their Adventure Kings one, and we've been very happy with it. It's plenty big enough to charge the solar. It's super quiet, doesn't use much fuel. But over the last few weeks, it's just, we've had issue after issue with it. So we put a warranty claim in. And then when we rang about the warranty claim, though, they said that it'll take 1 to 3 days for them even to assess the warranty claim. And then after that, apparently we have to take it into them and they'll hold it for 24 hours to assess whether it needs a repair or replacement. And then whether they repair it or they replace it, whatever. And that's fine. You know, that's all good, except that it's Christmas, and by the time that all happens, it's going to be weeks. And it's rain's forecast for the next week, which means that we definitely need that generator to top up the solar, as well as a lot of the Christmas gifts that the kids are getting are going to require them to have electronics, and then to say, well, you can't use anything after dark is. But also, post-Christmas, I always try and have a couple of days where I have some downtime as well. Like, we eat all the leftovers, so I spend all this time cooking food so that post-Christmas there's a whole bunch of leftovers, and we eat leftovers, and I might play some computer games with the kids and things like that. So we just don't want to have to worry about it. So what we did was we purchased a second one of the same generator. They are $380, so they're not an overly excessively expensive generator, and they're quite small. It does mean that we will have a backup once the one that we've got gets repaired or replaced or whatever, which is not a bad thing. And at some point we'd like to get a bore put on the property, and we may need a secondary generator at that point, though I'm hoping to be able to use things like the jackery for that, rather than, because we don't want to pay fuel. So the whole idea was that if we got the jackery, we could have tested that out, and maybe we wouldn't need to have the generator as much, because we have to pay for fuel, and paying for fuel gets expensive, especially with the cost of fuel as it is, but also having to have it on hand. We've got a couple of jerry cans we get filled, and then we rotate them in and out, but there is times when it gets forgotten and not realized that we're out of fuel, and the closest petrol station's about 15 minutes away, which isn't that far, but at the same time it's using petrol to get there, buying petrol, coming back, and it's a 45-minute round trip. So all that to say, I squirreled a bit, didn't I? We got a new generator. So the generator, we've got the new generator, which is fantastic because it has been overcast, and as you can tell, it's still glary again today, and I really should have put my hat on because I noticed how badly I was squinting in the last voiceover. But anyway, new generator, so that works, so that's good, that's fixed for the moment. We're still going to chase up the warranty or the repair of the other one, though, because it has a 2-year warranty on it, so we're going to use it. Other than that, what else? So yes, getting all the last minute Christmas stuff done so that I can have some time off after Christmas, basically. So this video is the next food prep video, and I actually have notes for 2 videos here, so I'm hoping to get both done today so that I can line them up for the next couple of days. And then when I get the jackery today, I'm going to unbox all that and try and figure out, some test out for that to use it and show you guys. I'm really excited about that. I think that's just amazing. And the unit that we got is one that we can get the battery units to go on top of, and we can increase it. So that's going to be something we'll save up for too, get extra battery packs for it, and then it might become our evening usage for the kids' computers or things like that, and then we charge it during the day and things like that. It's just going to be a lot of playing with and figuring out, but it'll be like having an extra solar array with a lot less work. So that's exciting. So we're going to use that. But yes, so family of 8. For anyone who hasn't been here before, though, if you've sat through this rambling, you're probably not sticking around. Sorry, if you've sat through the rambling, you've probably been here before because people complain about my rambling. But anyway, family of 8, we shop every 4 to 6 weeks, and then after the 4 to 6 week grocery haul, I give you some videos of how we've used the food, how we've preserved it, prepared it, frozen it, eaten it, all that sort of thing. I do try and do what we eat in a week meals as well, because videos as well, because people really enjoy that and they prefer that to all this going on and on. It's a little bit more compact, a little bit more condensed, but when I do the daily videos like I've been trying to do here with the food prep, I don't generally do the what we eat in a week as well, because I feel like it's double handling the content. So at the moment I'm adding some of our meals into these daily prep, because it's part of how we prep is that you prep the food so that you eat it as a meal then, and potentially for a couple of days post, and then whatever's left over gets preserved for later on in the month. It does make it hard sometimes with the 6 week grocery haul. I was saying to Darryl that sometimes when you're doing the 4 to 6 week grocery haul, the hardest part is all the choice. So you've got all this fresh food that needs to be used, and sometimes you can just freeze it and use it later, but I don't like to freeze like meat and stuff. I don't like to freeze it raw. I like to prepare it first. So you're going to prepare it and you eat it, and then you've got so many choices about what you want to try and what needs to be used and what needs to be frozen and things like that. Sometimes that's the hardest part about a 6 week grocery haul, is that first couple of weeks trying to decide what needs to be used first, and deciding what you want. Like, you know, the prawns are in the freezer. They don't need to be eaten straight away because they went straight into the freezer, but we have prawns, like so I'm going to make some prawn and pork gyozas in the next few days, because I've got to process the pork roast. So what I'll do is I'll process one of the pork roasts and I'll mince it up, and then I'll make pork and prawn gyozas. But I could just freeze the pork mince and do it later too. So we'll see how we go. I have the spring rolls that I want to make this month too, but there's all the Christmas cooking too. And anyway, this is the second set of food prep from the December grocery haul. So enjoy. Alrighty, so yesterday I did the start of the peach syrup and I let it steep in the fridge overnight. So this is the next morning. We're straining out the peach syrup. Now, if you want a really clear syrup, you need to just let it hang and strain. You don't want to move any of the solids around, because you're going to push some flesh through that way, and it's going to end up kind of cloudy, which doesn't worry me. That little bit of fruit, it's going to add more flavor, it's going to add more texture to it. That's cool by me. But if you want a really nice, clear, sort of a translucent type peach syrup, then you need to not move it around. You need to just let it hang and just let gravity do its job. It takes a bit longer too, and at the moment in the season that we're in, with the amount of flies and stuff, I'd have to do it in a fridge or something, not on a bench. So I just do it by hand, and I mash it, because I want those bits of fruit that are there. It wasn't a huge amount, but it's going to add more to that syrup, and I'm not real sure how I'm going to use the syrup. I'm going to try making peach iced tea, but I'm not real sure if we're going to like it. But other than that, it might be used over pancakes. It could be used in some cooking, some baking as the sweetener. So I'm not too concerned about that. So over the colander, I've pushed it through a little bit. Just gently agitated it all around in the colander to get as much liquid and flavour off the pits and the bits and pieces as I can. Now, I really need a new tripod. I apologise for the lack of above angles in these few videos. I will have to order one after Christmas, but the leg has been broken off this one, and this is as tall as it goes. And I do some handheld stuff, but it's really, like, I'm in a kitchen, so my hands are dirty. My hands shake really bad too, because that's part of my condition. So trying to hold the weight of a camera, it's just not working. I am looking at investing in a newer, lighter weight camera after Christmas, maybe in some Boxing Day sales, and I'll buy a new tripod then. So apologies for that for the moment. Once it was strained, I weighed it into a pot to get a sort of a guesstimate of the quantity of it. I could do cup measures, but weight's just as good. I want this to be a syrup because I'm looking at adding it to iced tea or things like that. So I'm going to go with 1.5 times the quantity in sugar. Now, these peaches were still pretty tart too. They weren't overly ripe or overly sweet. Plenty peachy, like the flavour's good, but they were a bit firm in that. So this sugar shouldn't overpower the peach. So I did about 1.5 the quantity of sugar. A lot of these have like double the amount of sugar to the juice because they want a really heavy syrup. I don't want it quite that heavy, but I do want it a little heavier than how I make my cordials. So I also added a dash of vanilla because, you know, vanilla goes really well with peaches. I put it on the stove at a low simmer until all the sugar was dissolved, because if you don't have the sugar dissolved in a syrup like this, then it will recrystallize for you. So you want to make sure that your sugar is nice and well dissolved, and then let it cool. The next thing I did was cook the focaccia from the night before. Unfortunately, with the temps the way they were and the fact that the starter came from the fridge, I did not get the rise I wanted out of it, but I cooked it off anyway. Darryl and the kids really aren't fussy when it comes to my bread, so, you know, that's fine. I also mixed up some flatbread dough, as I didn't believe that the focaccia was going to be particularly edible, and this gives an alternate for lunch. So even if they eat it, I probably won't if it's not, you know, if it's too dense or moist. It's really not my thing. So they will eat it, or it'll get broken up for breadcrumbs or something, but I made some flatbread as well. I used my Thermomix and a basic yeasted recipe for the dough. It's a really easy to handle flatbread dough. It can be used for all sorts of things, but it's just really simple to do it in the Thermomix. After that, I decanted the peach syrup. Now, I'm really just not feeling the whole canning thing at the moment. It's just a lot of work, and I'm just a little overwhelmed with everything at the moment. So I just put it in a bottle that doesn't get processed. But it made a lot more than I was expecting, and I may have to decant, heat and process it in smaller bottles in the next couple of days. I'll make some iced tea up and taste it, and hey, maybe we'll drink it quicker than I expected, but if not, I'll can it in smaller bottles. It does have a lovely colour and smell to it, and it's probably worthwhile putting in the smaller bottles so that we have it for usage for however we want to use it at a later date. I cooked off the flatbreads like I normally do. These are a bit like a naan. There's no yogurt or anything in the dough, but they do have a bit of oil, and they're yeasted. So they're thicker than like tortillas. Still very soft and flexible, but sturdier. We eat them in various ways. They're good to dip into like butter chicken or the coconut dal and stuff that I make, or sprinkle stuff on top of like an open grill or a pizza type thing. Rolled up with fillings inside is perfectly fine too. I think the kids had ham and salad on theirs. I just sprinkled with a bit of garlic powder and ghee and snacked on them. The weather really impacts my appetite. I find it hard to eat when it's hot. I get quite nauseous. So I tend to drink a lot and not eat too many solids during the day in summer. So these flatbreads are good for me just with a bit of ghee. It gives me a bit of carbs, a bit of fat, and I just, you know, nibble on them, and it works. I do normally try to add a protein, some ham, some chicken or something like that, but I was slack this day. I then decided to use some of the mangoes for a cheesecake. Now, the mangoes I got were on the green side, so they're lasting quite well, but I grabbed a couple of the slightly more ripe ones for this. The idea is to make some of these desserts that I can freeze and then either eat frozen or defrost to eat early on, so I don't have to worry about them later. So I needed about 500 grams of mango flesh, and these giant mangoes, two of them gave me that, which was really nice. I did my normal, use the glass to skim the flesh off the skin of the cheeks and cut the excess off the seed. I then cleaned the seeds and stuff myself as a snack, like I just sat there and ate it. So fruit's the other thing that I will eat a fair bit of when I'm not feeling real great, that nice light aspect, but it's a lot of sugar, so I do try not to eat too much of it, because you know you're gonna make yourself feel crappy if you're eating sugar and nothing else too. I bloomed some gelatin in some water. Being a fruit cheesecake, I don't want it baked, so I'm going to use gelatin to help set it up. I made a really quick base first. I don't have any store-bought biscuits to crush up, and I wasn't making biscuits just to crush up for a base. So I just used a standard almond-style base, a couple of cups of almonds turned into meal with the Thermomix, a dash of sugar, some ghee, and I think I added a pinch of salt and some vanilla. I'd maybe add some dates depending on whether it's not sticking very well and things like that, but this is just for me, so it's not a huge deal if the base crumbles when I try to cut it. I did use this glass dish to put it in. As I said, this is for me, so it's not so bad. If I have to cut it and mangle it to get it out of the bowl, then it's not that big a deal, but I just didn't have anything. I only own one loose base cake tin that I want to use for something else. I need to order a couple more, because the one that I've got I think is 23 centimeters. I'd like some 20 centimeter ones, but for the moment this glass dish will work fine. So I put the base in the dish and press it down firmly so it'll set up in the fridge, and then I basically blended everything else together. The mango, cream cheese, sugar, cream, a bit of vanilla. Then once it was smooth, I drizzled in the bloom gelatin while it was still blending, and then poured it into the bowl. This made a lot more than I had expected. Probably should have made a bit of an extra base and done it in like a rectangle, so I could have cut it into like squares, like a slice or something, but I will enjoy it regardless, and Mum loves mango too, so she can have some when she visits. I put it in the fridge to set, and once it's set, I'll figure out how I want to store it. Once that was done, I decided to make some cookies. I wanted to use some of my starters so that I could feed it again, because it's been neglected for a bit. So sometimes some rapid feedings helps to perk it back up again, so by using the starter I get to feed it more quickly. I have seen these browned butter sourdough discard cookies all over the place. There's a bunch of recipes. I based mine off the Boy Who Bakes one, but I didn't brown the butter. I used ghee, because browning butter is basically cooking the water out of it and the milk solids, which is what ghee is. I followed the recipe as closely as I tend to follow them, which, disclaimer, isn't always very closely. I did manage to spill a whole lot of the flour mix around the bowl instead of in it, though. I was still happy with the texture of the dough, though, so I went with it. The recipe also calls for 500 grams of chocolate chips, which is a lot. It has 400 grams of sugar in it as well, so this is much sweeter than my normal choice of cookies, and to be honest, as nice as they were, I'd be unlikely to make them again in a hurry. It was just too much sugar, too much chocolate. It was unnecessary and expensive when you look at the cost of chocolate as well. Like, that was $8 worth of chocolate chips. You know, that's a lot for a batch of cookies. Once the dough was done, I put it in the fridge. The recipe suggests 4 hours to 24 hours to refrigerate it before cooking it. The next thing I did was to churn some of the gingerbread ice cream. It's been chilling for 24 hours, so I poured it into the ice cream maker and just set it to churn. I left the cookies for about 2.5 hours. I didn't want to leave them till tomorrow, but it was getting late, so I just called it good. I used my new cookie scoops that I bought off Amazon. I bought these in a 3-pack of 3 different sizes for meatballs, cookies, that kind of thing, to give it a go, see people using them all the time, and I thought it might make things easier. This dough wasn't overly sticky and it was firm but not rock hard, so it worked quite well for this. They're supposed to spread quite a lot, so I was generous with spacing on the tray, which has its pros and cons, because it means I can only fit 8 cookies on here, and I can only fit one of these trays in the barbecue at a time. So it was a bit of a long-winded process baking all these trays off. This is what they looked like when they came out. Pretty good, actually. The first batch burnt a little on one spot of the pan. I turned the burner down under that spot, and I also had it a bit close to the edge. I fixed that for the next batches and had less issue. I let them cool for 5 minutes on the tray before transferring to a rack to cool completely, and then sticking another batch into the barbecue. I don't think I got a photo of them all done, but they all looked very similar to the first lot, just a bit more evenly browned. Everyone really likes them. They're a bit for me, really. Maybe if I did them really small, they would appeal to me more, like cut the chocolate chips up into sort of a flake chocolate and made them bite-sized ones. Reducing sugar in cookies like this is hit and miss. It can completely alter the texture of the cookies, so it makes it hard, but if I at least reduce the chocolate, that would make them less expensive. I don't know. I haven't decided if I'll make more and play around with it. The kids really enjoyed them, but I ate like half of one and that was enough for me. It was just a little overly sweet and not really... It was just a cookie, I suppose. Now, because I had bought the seafood extender, the fake crab, which in the ingredients is predominantly a white fish, by the way, just for anyone curious. It's got a few ingredients in it, but everyone really enjoys it, and we do it at Christmas time, and it's yummy. So the boys asked me to make sushi with it. Now, I forgot to get the avocado out of the freezer. I didn't have any mayo made up, but they were insistent, so we went with it. I sliced up some cucumber into batons and sliced up the seafood mix as well. Cooked up some rice like normal. I just do an absorption method with whatever rice I have, and then I transfer it to a bowl. I pour a little rice wine vinegar, a sprinkle of sugar, and a sprinkle of salt over it, and mix it through and call it sushi rice. I tend to roll up one per child and a couple for Darryl and I, and then they can have free reign rolling up however many more they want. I find that the easiest thing. If I just make one good solid one for all of them, and then while they're eating that, I roll up the ones for Darryl and I, and then I let them back into the kitchen and they can roll up more if they want, or not if they don't, or just eat the filling and rice in a bowl, whatever they choose to do. I bought one of those like bazooka things from Kmart, but I don't really find it very easy to use. I much prefer the mat. They're still not perfect, but every time I make it, I've improved in both the shape and the speed in making them, and it's already feeling like a much less arduous job to make sushi. So it will probably get on the rotation a little bit more, especially over summer, because it's filling, but it's still nice. It's almost like having a salad, I suppose. It's one of those kind of meals. And now that I can do it fairly quickly, it's not that big a deal. I lay the rice down, the fillings down, and just roll. I squeeze it tight with each revolution, and using a bit of water on the last bit to get it to stick down. These ones were definitely a little bit on the boring side, with no mayo in them, no avocado, things like that. But hey, dip them in some soy sauce, and everyone really enjoyed it, and that's the main thing. My ends are never neat, and I'm not sure if there's a knack to that, but they hold together well when cutting, and they're nice and firmly packed in the middle, so who knows. Maybe there's a technique to like patting them on the end, like maybe you're supposed to put them up on their end and sort of like give them a a pat like you do a pan to get the air out of a batter. I don't know. But my ends always look a little messy. It's irrelevant. They're for our usage anyway. The boys were pleased that they got sushi like they wanted, so in the end, that's all that mattered. So that was another day of food prep and a few things out of the way for Christmas, and we're just going to keep on chugging along with what needs to get done. Sometimes I don't get everything I wanted to get done before Christmas done, and we do it after Christmas, but that's why we make December a celebration. And because we don't do a whole lot of like New Year's celebration, that week after Christmas to New Year's is sometimes just... Well, it's December still, so we do a December celebration with a Christmas day, basically. That's why they get to do the less schoolwork and we do all the cooking and baking. I still haven't done gingerbread cutouts for them yet so that they can decorate them, because they love doing that. We might do that Christmas Eve, do gingerbread men, and then they can decorate them and then they can eat them Christmas Eve with their movie. We generally watch Die Hard for Christmas Eve, because it's a Christmas movie. I actually did a new piece of art for Darryl. He requested a Die Hard thing for his stocking. I'll put it up on the screen. And I still need to finish the artwork for their stockings and get that sublimated on as well. And there's a couple of gifts that I need to do. I bought some of the swimsuit material type, I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, that you use for stubby coolers that I can sublimate on for Mum, because Mum drinks stubbies at the pub when she goes, and she normally has one in her bag that she takes with her so she can use it when she's at the pub. So I thought I might do one. Maybe I'll get the kids to do some artwork and I'll sublimate it onto them for her, and things like that. So we've still got a few bits and pieces. I didn't finish sewing all their pajamas up. I did do a day in the life at one point that I started filming, and I never ended up editing it or showing it, but I had sewn up some, like the rashies and stuff. Maybe I'll put a really quick clip in the end here to show you the rashies, because I may not get that filmed again. But I also made them tartan jammy shorts and stuff, but I haven't finished everyone's yet, so I'm still working on that. We'll see how we go. Again, the week post Christmas, I try and have a bit of downtime and do things I want to do rather than what I have to do, so I might cover some of that then. I might film it, might share it. We'll see how we go. It is Christmas and I have a large family after all, so we will see how we go. I also need to come out here and spend some time in the garden. I need to harvest a whole lot of basil and get some more tomatoes tied up, because every time it rains they tend to flop a little bit. We got a new tank set up out the back for rainwater catchment, so that's really good. We've been trying to get that sorted for a while, and we managed to get that done yesterday before it rained, and then hopefully we get some more rain to fill it as well, because we can use that for animal water out the back there. So yeah, that's about everything over the last day or so. So thank you for joining me again today, and I will see you on the next video. Bye guys.